Um, I'll start the meeting. Okay, thank you for coming. Sorry for the delay. It's 6:09 on December 7th, and welcome to our December regular meeting of the Norfolk Board of Education. The first order of business is public comment. It's the board policy that we invite public comments at every meeting, and certainly encourage everyone to speak to us and let us know their minds. But it is also our policy that we don't respond to public comment at that moment. When appropriate, we'll get back to whoever would like to address us. Do we have any members of the public?
No.
Okay, so moving on. We are going to move to the approval of the minutes of November.
She has to call the meeting to order.
Oh, I thought we already called the meeting. to order.
No,
Not yet, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, not currently the chair. Oops.
You know, it's okay. You've already started. You know, it's not a big deal. The Board of Ed police are not here. You've opened the meeting. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well,
When we get to the, no, go
because I'd
ahead.
like to start with welcome to Janet and Jay, and for their first meeting here tonight. Very happy to have you. Thanks for being here with us. Would you like to go through those first few pieces?
Take it away, yeah. Well, when we get to the elections, I'll take it from there until we finish.
We had to do elections first.
Well, we are, but she can
Oh,
still
okay.
call the meeting,
I'll
do
shut up.
the minutes. That's okay.
Okay. So we would like to start with the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th with the one additional S that I mentioned earlier to our secretary.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You guys would need to abstain. Because you weren't here. So you don't vote because you weren't here. And Jay can't vote because he's not yet officially sworn. But the meeting, the motion passes.
Okay, so the first order of business would be to elect our officers, and I believe we had a nomination committee.
Yes.
Would the nomination committee please give us the slate of nominations?
You want one at a time or all three?
Why don't you give all three and we'll vote one at a time?
We nominate Ann DeCerbo for chair, Virginia for vice chair, and John for secretary.
And that was it for all the nominations?
That was it.
Any further nominations from the floor? Well, given that we have just one person for each office, we can vote on the slate of officers as presented by the nominating committee. So all in favor of electing Ann DeCerbo as president, Virginia as vice president, and John as secretary?
Chair, vice chair.
Chair, vice chair, and secretary, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No,
One abstention?
Oh, Gordon, he was unmuted, but I don't.
I vote yes. Uh-oh. Now what?
That's how my whole day has gone. Just
Yeah.
sort of discombobulated. Everything's a little backwards. I don't know. I drove here tonight and then I had to turn around and go back and get my computer, which I forgot. So I don't know. It's been like all upside down and backwards.
Tuesday.
What headphones? These headphones?
Can you hear me?
It's a microphone.
Can you hear from your headphones on there?
We could change the speaker there, but it might be
Oh,
in danger of this. Okay.
Unless I mute you and then I unmute myself.
But then you won't be able to hear the rest of the meeting. So you can just have to
Well,
do it
no,
back and forth.
I'll unmute, so it'll just come from my computer instead of from there and there, so it won't be feedback.
But muting is only controlling the microphone, not the speaker.
Right.
Gordon, can you hear me?
I can hear, is that just Ginger?
Yes, it is.
Yes, hi, I can hear you.
Okay. He needs it. Well, I'm in and she can, and it's still recording to the cloud, so you don't need to come in. Okay, he wants to. All right, fine. All right, so Gordon, did you hear Mary Beth
I did,
announce the slate? Okay,
yes.
can we have your vote, please?
My vote is aye,
For all three, yes?
for all three.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so the motion. So we'll turn the meeting right over back.
Thank you.
I can see and hear all of them.
I'm
All of you
I'm
guys.
trying to mute myself. Got it.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for making that all work. And thank you for the election. Okay, so moving on. Attendance report.
All right, well, congratulations again to our new board members and to our new elected officers. Little bit of a, just go from my report, at the time that I wrote this about a week ago, we had no cases in the school. I need to change that to we now have 3 in our school community. But I'm happy to say that Screen and Stay came at a very good time. I believe that of those 3 positive cases that we have, we had 10 close contacts. And half of those kids are able to come to school through Screen and Stay. So we did have some children who were ineligible, but at least half of those kids are able to come and do in-person learning. You all had in your packet a list of the board dates for meetings for the upcoming year. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at those, and I will let Ann facilitate a discussion about those dates. And hopefully we can get a vote on them tonight, because they need to be recorded at the town hall, and I believe that's by January. So currently, you know, the dates, God bless you. We're staying with our Tuesday evenings at 6 o'clock, and the dates reflect the first Tuesday of the month, as we have done for the last year.
So how's everyone feeling about these dates? I know the time, I think the time being later might help Gordon. Might help Gordon, actually, you know, Gordon is muted, so I can't talk with her. But I think I should be able to change the speaker on my computer to be able to hear her. No? I think that would work.
Ginger can hear me.
But
She
From the
can-
headphones to the
I
computer.
can hear her and she can hear us.
okay, all right. Well, so what I wanted to see is if anybody wanted to discuss a change in that time. The only thing I would say is that because of the Board of Finance meeting that also happens on these Tuesdays, that sometimes
It's the second.
theirs is the second
Yeah.
Tuesday. Okay, so I guess that doesn't come into play. That won't be an issue. I like the 6 o'clock meetings. It tends to work for me, but I would be willing to, you know, move them a little bit later if it's better for the group too. So
I'm good with
Jenny
the
and Janet, you're new here.
Gordon's
too.
good with it.
6 o'clock time.
Um,
If
So
I
when
can
we
have
set the
her-
meetings for the year, if we deviate from the schedule at all, we have to call a special meeting. Special meetings are unique because in them you are more restricted on what you can discuss and add to the agenda or change on the agenda. So we really try to set the meeting dates and then stick to them and not change them. The meeting, since we're a public board, our meetings are public and they're published. So we set out the meeting dates at the beginning of the year and we go from there. So the 6 o'clock on the first Tuesday work? Okay, does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay,
And it works for Gordon?
okay,
Yes,
all right.
She's
Yes.
up. We might be able to hear her now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right, good. Well, then we'd be looking for a motion to accept these meeting dates.
I'll make a motion to accept the schedule of meetings for 2022.
And then we need a second for the motion.
A second.
And all those in favor? please say
Aye.
aye.
I,
Thank you.
This like Gordon by proxy.
John, you can tell them I'm voting.
And then the
yes.
next bullet in my message, in my report in the packet, talks about the calendar. And since that time, I have met with the Region 7 superintendents again. And we've had a meeting with the Litchfield County superintendents. And it appears that Region 7 is about the only district that is deviating from the advanced April break, which immediately follows Easter. So as a group today, we decided that we would all present to our board, moving that April break up to the week of the 10th, as opposed to where it was the 17th. So that we wouldn't be in conflict with other districts. A lot of the districts, this is the new copy, followed Ed Advance because they work in one district, their kids go to school in another district, and there's a conflict if the weeks are different, so they followed the Ed Advance. Region 7, like I said, was the outlier, but we agreed to conform, so that change is noted here. What isn't on this calendar are Lauren had requested that the first 3 days of school be considered to be half days to kind of provide a little more upfront PD for our teachers on those half days. So they would be half days for students, full days for teachers. It would be professional development in the afternoon, so that teachers would have 2 full days of PD the end of August. Then the kids would come back for 3 half days. Then the following week would be 4 full days. And then after Labor Day, we would be back in the swing of things. So I offer that up for your consideration. It's not on this draft calendar, but if you consider that in the vote, we can always add them.
Okay, well, I kind of feel like we already start off our school year slowly with the 3, 4, 5. But what does everybody else, how does everyone else feel about that? Those first 3 days, half days versus full days. The teachers, do they just start on that Monday or do they have time the week before? They start on that Monday.
They start. There are 5 PD days added to the teachers' school year calendar.
Okay,
We have 2 in August. Then there are a couple during the school year, and then we have one that is the day following the student last day of the school year. So I believe there's one in October, one in November, Election Day, and it's one day that is attached to the long weekend in October around Columbus Day. So there are 5 PD days during the year, and then we have a few half days interspersed as well. I think there are 4 half days throughout the year as well for professional development. Typically, they abut a long weekend or a holiday.
have you found that there's a need or like that first week?
I think because our certified staff starts on Monday, then our whole staff starts on Tuesday. And I think what we found is, and this is probably a function of COVID, there are so many must-dos that the things that we want to make sure that we are all on the same page about, like little nuts and bolts things, recess procedures, lunch procedures, things that you want to have common expectations, time to debrief on, while managing the professional development that supports student learning and instructional growth. Those usually happen on the 29th and the 30th. So that leaves little time for kind of nuts and bolts procedural things that when you have new staff members or just the beginning of the year brings, those opportunities can be helpful because that just makes you start your year off stronger. So I just humbly put that request in, and I think that it allows, you know, an opportunity for some greater collaboration and, you know,
I think
time
we should
for
mention it.
our whole staff to, you know, start the year off strong.
Gordon had a question. She asked, do the teachers get time to prep for the school starting? Right, and I know she doesn't, I don't know if you have a calendar, but there's the 2 full days before the 31st, the 29th and 30th. And Mary Beth started to write an answer, but. you
I
wanna
thought
just-
John was asking for his own
No,
clarification. So, you know, of those 2 days, usually a couple hours or so are given to the teachers to go and do final touches on their room. Most of our teachers are here several days prior to the beginning of school, coming in, getting their rooms ready. So they do a lot of the prepping, you know, during the summer on their own, in terms of getting their rooms ready.
okay, so the first 2 days are teacher in service, not professional development, or is that this, is that?
That's this one of the
Same
same.
It is, okay,
Yes.
that's, this Gordon's just asking.
So
Mhm.
how do we compare to other schools? Is that common practice? Like, do they usually have those first 3 days as half days? Is that a common practice, or is that? Or is
It was
all
a
over the
common
board?
practice last year. I'm
Okay.
not sure if Colebrook started the year with, you know, some half days this year as well. But I would say no, it's probably not a common practice. I believe this year, Region 6 started with, you know, some more half days.
Uh-huh.
Again, I think the COVID procedures and, you know, all of
Heavy
the
extras and-
things that needed to happen for reopening made that a helpful, you know,
Yeah,
modification.
I
I
guess-
don't know to what extent we will be dealing with that next year, you know,
Right.
so.
yeah.
Doesn't Indian Mountain do like half days for at least the lower levels for a couple of weeks?
Oh, I'm out of that. I don't
Yeah.
know anymore.
Okay.
I
So-
did check with Region 7 superintendents, and none of the other districts have half days in their calendar for next year. So, and within our region, it's not been a practice, and it won't be put in place for next year.
So Gordon asks, so teachers don't get time to do their rooms or set up with pay? Or those paid?
With contractual, like with their contractual hours, is that what she's asking? Are they paid to set up their rooms? Is that what she's asking?
Yes,
They are if they set them up on the 29th and the 30th.
But often they come earlier because they.
They
Want
often
to,
come on
yeah.
their own time
Because they.
outside
want
of their
to.
contractual
And the
hours.
29th and 30th are already half days. the big full days.
The 29th and 30th are full days for, the 29th is for certified staff and the 30th is for all staff. No kids that day. They're full days.
And so if we did have half days, those first 3 half days, that wouldn't be in lieu of the professional development that's happening on Monday and Tuesday. It wouldn't be that they'd have more time to set up their rooms. It would be professional development.
Like you would add some professional development topics on those days as opposed, it wouldn't just be like free
Absolutely,
time
yes.
that they would. set up
Correct.
rooms or something
No,
like that.
yes.
So, I don't know, usually I think whatever the teachers need to make them better teachers is absolutely always what we should do. I was just starting to feel like maybe, I know, and maybe this is just me showing my age, I remember that when half days were like a big thing, remember, we didn't have half days for a long while, and then we brought half days back in. And now we have quite a few of them. And so I just want to, before we just say yes right away, I just want to like talk about whether you talk about that with everybody and see if everybody feels comfortable with that idea. And I think the reason before that was the reason the pendulum swung against half days for a while was just that, there's more student hours, with when we have our full days, and that, sometimes it can be the case that too many hours in a row aren't good for learning, but sometimes too few hours in a day doesn't let you get back into the swing of things quickly enough either. So, how is everybody else thinking?
I think start easing the kids off with half, because you're on summer vacation, boom, you're in class for 8 hours. So I think that those 3 days, half days would be more beneficial that's just my.
And how much learning really happens in the afternoons then at that point?
Yeah. Like,
But are they getting into the swing of things, getting to know each other again?
Right.
Maybe that piece happens. Oh,
Kind of, and it feels like, I personally don't like the half days going into the school year, because I feel like, because then you have that break after. So it's like they're getting into the swing of it, but then they're out of it now again versus staying in it. But I do agree with, you're coming out of summer break and you're throwing them right in.
I think like Lauren knows better than anyone that like
Mhm.
you're here with the faculty. If you're asking for it, I think that we should trust that and go with what you think is the best.
good points. What do you think, John?
Sure. And Gordon said a while ago, okay, that's consistent. It seems extra stressful.
it seems stressful to who, the teachers or the student, like,
The half days?
are the half days stressful or the setting up the class, like,
The non-paid classroom days probably.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't give them a lot of time to set up either.
Right.
well, they wouldn't be setting up, they're saying they would be doing more professional development
They
stuff.
would, those days would not be for teachers to be in their classrooms to set their classrooms up. The expectation is certainly that, by the first day of school, your classroom is set up and you are ready to teach children and invite them into your, learning environment. Those afternoons would be spent in team meetings, having, staff meetings where we discuss relevant topics to our, school goals, things that we, on the last day of school, action items that we aren't able to put into place, on those first 2 days. One of the practices that we started in COVID was on the 30th, we implemented a meet and greet where families and students could come in, see the classroom, meet their teacher, if that teacher's new, feel acclimated. And so that's something that we want to keep going. However, that kind of, ekes into some additional professional development time. So, we want to strike a balance. Obviously, every moment we have with students is critical. But every moment we have as a school community to, get the school year off strong is, it's a balance. So
Gordon says not having time to set up is really hard. But so do you feel that the teachers have enough time in that day and a half, if there's the meet and greet as well, to fully set up, or do they need to come in prior on paid time?
teachers are hard workers and
Well-
they come in regardless of whether or not they're going to get paid. So
Sure.
I think that, that is a sense, that creates a sense of calm for them. They're excited, I think that
We just don't want to take advantage of it.
we certainly don't want to take advantage of them, and I don't think that we are. I think that they will come no matter what, is my answer.
It hasn't appeared to be a hardship.
No.
We've not had any sense that teachers feel stressed or that they don't have enough time. And the time that they have on that first 2 days, it's just the finishing touches, and they enjoy setting up their rooms. There's a
Yeah.
lot of camaraderie. They come in and they're visiting, and we are very, cognizant of the mood and where teachers are, and there's tremendous energy and excitement. So in terms of setting up rooms, not an issue. Where there is sometimes some stress is that we're asking an awful lot of our teachers and we want more for our kids. And it's really critical that teachers have the skills and understanding and competency to do the things that we want them to do for kids. So the professional development time is really contributes to lowering stress because they have a better handle on what it is they need to do, time to practice and talk and prepare and do that. So I think the professional development time is far more valuable to them to designated time to just set up their room.
For those half days, just one more thing to consider before we make a final decision. Have you ever had pushback from parents that the half days are difficult on them? That they are then
I
have their
haven't
children come
gotten
in
any
half?
feedback from parents that the
Okay.
half days are difficult. I haven't asked specifically, but we haven't received calls, or at the end of the year survey and the open comments, we haven't received any feedback to say that they are challenging. certainly have parents here,
Well, I was
you
gonna
know,
say,
who
I
could
feel like-
probably pipe in, and that's something that I could certainly inquire about before, you know, I don't know if you need to make the decision tonight about.
I think
this,
it's a good idea if we can make our decision tonight, because I feel like
Okay.
people like to plan, they're always eager to get that calendar for the school year.
I think as a parent and working different shifts that I do, it's easier to know when you have your half days. So you know when to plan like your childcare and stuff like that surprise half day, I think is what throws people
Yeah,
off
I was gonna
more.
say,
So
it's-
as long
it's
as
the
it's-
weather days and the unexpected
Right, I
ones
think
are
if you
really
see it on the
hard.
school calendar in advance, you kind of have that idea, like, okay, I can figure this out. Versus not having it.
And I don't want to speak for Jay, but I mean, I know like there's teachers setting up their classrooms, like Jay and I don't get paid to set up our course syllabus and our classes like that's assumed that it's part of your,
Part of your contract.
it's part of your contract, it's part of your pay, like, you know, I'm prepping for spring now, and that doesn't start for over a month. So, but I'm not like, where's my money for, and I think teachers know that. And some of them work, they teach over the summer, so they're here.
Yeah.
Um,
So you feel that, so Lauren, you feel that those 3 half days could be really well spent and make our teachers stronger and our.
I do. I think it can really go a long way, like Mary Beth said, in relieving some of the, you know, kind of in setting the tone for the beginning of the year with the, you know, with our continuous growth plan, the strategies we're putting in place, you know, receiving professional development on those strategies, and simply just having time to talk as a faculty, because that, you know, we're a one, you know, teacher per grade level school, and we need to have strong vertical alignment, and, you know, having that extra time to do that would be really beneficial. One of the things that I would also suggest is that we do a 1:15 dismissal, because having kids in the habit of recess and lunch, and one of the things that I think is critical to talk about are some of those nuts and bolts, you know, having a smooth lunch and recess hours with common expectations for student behavior and responding to that. So having that be in practice would be valuable, because it'll, you know, it'll be fodder for discussion.
Are any of our existing half days noon dismissals, or they're all the 1:15? Because I don't remember.
So that's a great question. So the dismissals associated with conferences and the last day of school and right before winter break, those are 1:15 dismissals. The ones that come right before, they're delineated which ones, but typically like the 6th of October is a 12 p.m. dismissal.
Why is that?
That, again, we did that so we could have more opportunity, like an hour and a half additional time for professional development by the time, because that's a PD day for teachers versus just a go home, you know, early day. Having that extra hour and a half, almost 2 hours, well, hour and 45 minutes, really, you can accomplish so much more. So that's why we, on the PD days where we have a 12 o'clock dismissal, we can just accomplish, you know, an hour and a half more, because teachers, you know, we don't have that hour and 15, which ends up
So
being an
what if-
hour and a half.
What if we made
Of
them all an hour?
transition.
What if we add those 3 half days and then make everything 1:15? How would that go?
Well, I just
Okay.
have to say that depending on how many buses we have,
Yeah.
we have to make sure that the buses can get the kids home and be back to regional in time for dismissal.
At
So
2,
the
whatever.
1:30, sometimes 1:15 won't work. So we, if they're a half day, we then need to look at, talk to Region 7 and say, you know, because they share All-Star as well. So we need to figure out if that time is doable. Like this calendar, this year, we had some things in place, and at the last minute, we said, oh my gosh, we can't do that. So you got the alert now saying it won't be 1:15, it'll be 12, or it won't be 12, it'll be 1:15. So I don't think we can promise you now what time those, you know, early dismissals or those.
So
half
it's
days will
either
be.
early dismissal or half day, not to interrupt you.
Right.
So, and we don't want to exactly say which one it'll be. We're just going to call them all half days.
or early dismissal days at some
Right.
point, because we're just not sure right now. If we get the third bus back, it may, make it easier, but this year's been tough because we went from 3 buses to 2. They've got more grounds to cover, and they need to be able to get all of our kids home and then get those buses up to Regional 7 for.
So I just think it's better to say early dismissal than half days if
Yeah.
they're staying more than a half day.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh.
right?
We
So if they're
could
staying till
call them all the same
1:15,
thing.
it's an early dismissal because they're having lunch and recess here.
Mhm.
But
I mean, the
don't,
calendar's gonna have to, maybe we should reformat the calendar so it specifically says what time the dismissal is on that day.
so I think it, just my opinion, if we call them early dismissal days with the half line through,
Yeah.
we can certainly communicate to parents in a timely manner what time it will be.
Right.
We'll know more in September than we know now. I think if parents know kids are gonna come home earlier on those early dismissal days, and we will let them know if it's going to be 12 or if it's gonna be 1:15 later on as we are clearer about our situation.
So Lauren, you like the idea that some are 1:15 and some are 12, because
Yes.
they have different values. There's,
Yes.
there's different things to recommend with each of them.
Mhm.
Okay.
My question was gonna be about the bus situation, because we did run into that where they were getting out at 1:15 and they ended up coming home at 12, or it was vice versa.
Yes.
And there's
that
no
was
way
a
to
bus.
predict what kind of bus situation we're gonna have
Into
this
time.
coming new year.
Right.
That is correct.
And when we did the
Um,
calendar last year, we didn't know we would be down a bus,
Right, 'cause
so
then it would
it,
interfere with the
yeah.
middle school, the high school.
Right.
Um,
And one of the days, for example, it's not bus related, but it seems that Northwestern, the 17th is always an early dismissal day for them. So while we had it planned as a 12 PM dismissal for professional learning, we weren't able to dismiss at 12 o'clock because the buses aren't available at 12. So I think what Mary Beth said is really prudent. If we can make sure that we, know the busing situation and can be responsive to that and the different needs of professional learning, then that would be helpful.
Okay, so we can't solve the half-day time dismissal right now, but that will have to wait till the September, but we can decide on those first 3 half-days. If someone want to if we want to change this, we need to make a motion. right?
Yeah, well, if you want to vote on the calendar now, you would want to vote on the calendar
With an
with
amendment.
the
Okay,
amendment.
Okay,
the
if we decide we
revision.
want to do.
Yeah.
that. So, would someone like to make a motion that describes what, one way or another? We decide we want to vote that way or not. It seems like, I mean, my impression of our board is that we are in favor of moving towards that, to the half days. Is
So
that-
you can have a vote on the first 3 half days, and then once you decide that, then you can vote on the calendar
Okay,
if it's different than this.
I will make a motion to adjust the first week of school from the 31st to the 2nd as being, I'm gonna say early dismissal days for the calendar year 22-23.
would anyone like to second that motion?
I could second the motion.
Okay, go to it. Okay, we've had discussion, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Gordon?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. And then how about a motion to accept the calendar as presented with that amendment?
This is moving that Easter break up.
Right.
to
Yes.
Easter.
Yeah,
Which I
where
feel
it's
like is
supposed to
much
be.
better.
It's so much more- it makes so much more sense.
So Janet's gonna make that motion, right?
I will make the motion to move that spring break up to the Easter. I said
Okay.
that right.
Yeah, and to accept the
And-
calendar.
And to accept the calendar as it is.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Gordon says aye.
Okay. All right, great, motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
that
for that, Alana.
consideration.
Alrighty, and then I don't have any other, anything else to report, although Virginia shared with me this morning, and I didn't have a chance with Mary Pat to get, details, but every single one of our sixth grade students who went up to Region 7 are all on the honor roll first term, which
Woohoo!
is just
Yeah, all 9 of them
unbelievable.
That's
Fantastic.
great.
Yep.
Isn't that great?
at each level, honors, high honors, and academic excellence.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's not atypical, but it really, I think, speaks highly to the education that our kids leave here with, that they're able to get up to the Region 7 and be so successful, so.
Yeah, and thank you for noticing that, because one of the things that, when people talk about our scores or our like various ways that we are measured against other schools, it's just like real estate in Norfolk. So many things are not really comparable to other pieces that are out there. And Botel in many ways doesn't perform as it should on those, or doesn't show its strength in those other measures in ways that it should. And I think these sorts of measures really do show. I mean, so many of our Botel alums have been valedictorian and salutatorian and have constantly or consistently been on the honor roll. So I think that's really great.
And Gordon says woohoo.
Well,
It's
and-
like something good to this, like, you do hear a lot how Norfolk scores lower than other districts, and so you don't really ever see the other side of it.
Yeah, and
Going
like I
on.
said, those scores, they have lots of little criteria in them that have so little to do with, kind of the ways you might think these things are measured. And, these sorts of measures that are very concrete are really easy to see and to understand.
When I don't know if Jay and Janet were aware that Region 7 was awarded with a blue ribbon status. Judy went down to Washington DC, and Judy made a point of sending a letter to the board and to speaking with all the superintendents and principals and saying that, kids don't succeed and they don't become a blue ribbon school all by themselves, and that the feeder schools, she really did acknowledge that, we send our kids prepared to do well and that they build on that, and really wanted us to all share in that recognition. So, in terms of scores, I don't think that we are remarkably out of line with our peers, but there are, as you said, many ways that our kids succeed and perform and excel that you don't always hear about. So it's nice to be able to celebrate those when we are with
Absolutely.
them.
So I wonder, is there a way to kind of make that like public knowledge to make other people and other families in the community know that maybe.
Lauren's newsletter.
I can
Yeah.
put it in the newsletter.
Well, I think people need to hear.
We could
especially
put it on the
younger
website.
families,
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that.
The
I
younger
can certainly
families
put it
coming
on
in.
Class
like,
Dojo.
because if you're just going online and looking at the, like you said, the school scores, you're not really seeing the other side of that, where it's probably good to, for the community.
And don't
the
they
newer
publish
families.
that either
Yeah,
in
it's
the
on their
Norfolk
website.
Now or the
Yeah, they do publish
newspapers?
it.
They
And the
usually
newspaper
do.
too.
We can,
Yeah.
well, we could bring it to the attention of Norfolk now.
Yeah.
They've been doing a very good job of working to cover us and
Right.
reaching out lately about that. So
Yeah.
that'd be a nice thing to talk to them about.
I just kind of
Nice
let the
little-
community know that there are good things happening in the school
Yeah.
versus, people
How
wanting to
to
send
let-
their kids other places.
Yeah, and how to let people know about that thing is an excellent thing for the communications committee
Yeah,
to focus on.
absolutely.
So I'm gonna ask
Oh,
Janet.
okay.
Wait, what?
Yes,
that's
She
coming
said
up.
something here, I didn't hear it.
That's coming up.
Slip
That's
that
coming
right
up.
in.
Anyway, okay. Mary Beth, is there anything else you wanted to cover? I know you.
Unless you've got questions for me about the bills for review or anything else that you've got questions, I'm happy to respond.
They're on the signboard too, Lauren.
Really? That one?
Yeah. wherever-
Sure.
wherever that is, where-
We could.
9 out of 9.
Get the
The
flashing
flashing
traffic
lights.
sign.
Yeah.
I don't know about the
Well,
8th
that's
grade.
different than all
You
honor
would,
roll
we
and
could
stuff.
look
They should
and
be
point
Yeah,
that
they're
out.
gonna drive
I
by.
don't know how
it.
many are in regional though.
Gordon does agree that people definitely.
Right, you have to ask David.
That they need to know.
You have
My
to.
computer has some things to say.
Well,
Can't
Ann
see
and
what it
I
is.
were at a meeting back in November, and Mike Scaniers happened to be at that meeting, and he said, wow, I have learned so much about what's going on, and how come nobody knows? The community needs to know. And, Ann was there, and she said, well, we'll have to look at ways that it's really difficult, because we put things in newsletters, we communicate to our, school family, but in terms of how you get all of these things out to the greater community, it's more of a challenge,
There's
so.
a disconnect.
Can we reach out to the board members that are from Norfolk on the regional board of ed, and maybe they can do some of the legwork on outreach too?
That sounds like a good idea. That's smart. Let's do that.
All right, put that on our communications agenda.
agenda. Exactly. Okay,
Jeff, can you remember?
Yeah, that's him.
principal's report.
I want to thank Ann and John for all of their work on the Veterans Day Assembly. It was really a very, speaking of, the getting input from the community, because we had to have a virtual production for the veterans and their guests and families, we had an opportunity to elicit pictures from veterans that we would have typically invited to the assembly. And when they sent their pictures in with, their rank and all of the other kind of descriptive information, a few of them sent along, little anecdotes about how much the assembly meant to them, that they saved every handwritten letter from our students, and that they were in a box in the attic. So it really, doing things a little bit differently had a pleasant, benefit. I know that when we spoke, when we had the veterans in the building and they got to meet the students, that is always so meaningful, but it was really meaningful to hear their replies about how much this impacts them. So the Veterans Day Assembly was a great hit. Our teachers and students were very well prepared, and it was streamed live, and we're working on getting the recording up onto the website. We tried another tradition again, because we weren't having guests in the building. We wanted our kids to have some interaction with, former veterans or current people in the military. And so Mr. Byrne reached out to 3 guests who came and told their story, answered kids' questions, and just put a face, and a story behind who was a veteran and what do they do and why should we be grateful for their service. So that was another really, I think, critical part of Veterans Day that was made it even more special.
Gordon said that the veterans loved the celebration, double exclamation points. It was a super gift to them.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. I'm happy to report that Student Council is meeting this year, and their mission is to spread kindness throughout the school and the local and global community. They brainstormed a bunch of projects, and the first one that we decided on was PJ Day, which is this Friday. PJ Day is a statewide fundraiser for CCMC and childhood cancer, and was started as a way to show solidarity for kids who are in the hospital receiving treatment, who often spend a lot of time in their jammies. So Student Council went around, talked to each of the classrooms about that initiative, and we have exceeded our fundraising goal of $100. So I'm happy to report we will be wearing PJs on Friday. We had parent-teacher conferences at the end of November, right before Thanksgiving, and they were very, very well attended. We had in-person conferences, but if parents needed a virtual conference, we arranged that as well. I would say, I don't have hard numbers, but I did ask teachers to let me know if anyone did not come. I think I know of, possibly 1 or 2 parents who needed to reschedule. So our attendance was well up into the 90%. I wanted to thank you, that extra half day that you did give, or early dismissal, that you gave to the teachers, allowed them to, go home, have dinner, go to the bathroom, do a little bit of extra preparing of student, work. So, it can't be underestimated, the time and energy that teachers put into conferences, and having a little bit of a break in between students and meeting with parents was really appreciated. So thank you so much for that additional day. So upcoming events, we have a PJ Day next week. Mary Beth and I are having an open, hour with administrators. The holiday fair, the PTO holiday fair is planned for the end of the month. The student council's meeting to have to plan a good news gathering for the end of the month, which will include socially distanced and other, COVID mitigation strategies. We have an early dismissal right before the winter break, and then that brings us to winter break. You have any questions? Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. Yeah. We're going to move on to our standing committee reports. And I wanted to talk with Janet and Jay about this topic too. So we have a lot of the business that we do on the board, we do through our committees. And we ask that everyone on the board commit to 2 or 3 committees that they become part of. The committees meet outside of the regular meetings. Usually it's listed here when they meet, either as needed or on a regular basis, like a bi-monthly basis or something like that. And then it's the job of the chair of that committee to report back on how that meeting went, or any developments or any kind of just updates on those issues here at the board meeting. Since we've had a couple of our older members are no longer here, though there are some vacancies on these committees. And so I'll be asking you guys where you'd like to be. And I also thought that we could, if there's any of our existing members who want to change committees or join a committee or something like that, I would kind of put that out there to you guys now too. And it doesn't have to, if we can kind of pencil stuff in for right now, and if we then decide that, we want to change things around in the future after we have a little more time to think about it, I think that'd be all right, but I would love to kind of pencil things in so we can, get these together. So starting with personnel and negotiations. Don and I are on that committee. I'd like to stay on it.
Yep.
Donna's
Yep.
fantastic at it. So, you know what I'll go over each of the committees, just quickly explain what they do or what their focus is, and then give you some time to think about where you might fit in. So personnel negotiations, the major thing that committee does is to meet with the teachers, representatives and the representatives for the custodians, and work on their contracts, and also the administrators. We work on their contracts. We discuss things that need to be changed or adjusted up or down, that sort of thing, and hear what either good things and bad things and those sorts of things about that. That tends to meet, it doesn't meet all year long. It really clusters around when those contracts are coming up. But that's how that works. Anything else I should say about that, Donna?
No. I hate to go on about how hard negotiations is after the last time I warned you and it was like smooth sailing.
Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it may not be often, but sometimes we'll be meeting that'll last like really a long time, like hours and hours and hours and hours, like well into the evening, because you have to come to an agreement, so you have to kind of stay until it's done. But other times it works out well. Curriculum and technology, that committee needs to kind of check in with the school, with the administrators and the staff about what's happening with curriculum and technology, maybe hear about what's needed, where our challenges are, where our successes are, and to help to make sure that the board goals and the administration and teacher goals are all kind of in the same direction. Does that sound right to you, Gordon, and to engineer?
Yeah.
So there's
Sounds
a lot of
good to me.
teachers and support staff that are part of that. They are part of that committee.
And they really do the majority of the talking in that, because
Yeah.
they kind of tell us what's going on, and we,
And we go, that sounds
that's
good.
great, good job. And ask questions and clarify and try
Yeah.
to be, and try, try to be a mouthpiece for how that affects the greater community.
I will say
Then
about,
there's the finance committee. The finance committee works hard around financing budget time, around budget time, and meets often then, and also has responsibility for talking with the Board of Finance. John has been chairing that, doing a really fantastic job. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that, John?
please take that
Mhm.
job,
The
please.
budget, is created by Mary Beth and Lauren and their staff. So we advise and consent on it, but we approve it and present it to the Board of Finance, and so long as we can make a good case for it, it's usually fine. So
That's a great committee. It's a very interesting one. You get to know the kind of nuts and bolts of how a lot of things work and where the money is and how it's. all
Is a
put
great committee.
together.
What's Gordon saying? I know she's talking.
oh, she's not.
I am talking,
Oh,
but
you are talking. Okay, what are you saying?
I'm saying, I think that you should continue to be the spokesperson for that committee. And I am not
I think she's
in
saying
a
nice things. I can
position
tell by the tone.
to be the chairperson of that committee anymore. And I would love it if you would take over. If
That's
this
fine.
is an appropriate venue for that to happen, I think that would be the better choice.
Of the Finance Committee?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Of which committee?
The Finance Committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you want to remain on the Finance?
I will remain on it, but I do not want to be the chair of it.
Okay.
Okay. Anything to share?
She said that I
She said that you do a very good job of chairing the finance
Sure.
committee. I think that's what she said. And he does an excellent job of presenting it to the board.
He
of
does an
Finance.
excellent job. I don't think Michael Scott
Okay,
is to
the
anyone
policy
other.
committee looks very carefully at very, very long documents. And I don't really like that committee. I mean, I don't like serving on it. I think the people on it do a bang up job.
John's the only one left on.
Lonely bystander.
And many of the policies are kind of dictated by, by the state. They come to us, we read them over to see how they apply to us. We make adjustments so that they're more suited for us. And it's very, it's a very important committee because it's important to know what those things are. It meets bi-monthly.
Well, we belong to CABE, which is the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. And we have signed up for their, to be part of their policy support. And so every time laws come into place, whatnot, they usually will send us this, you need to have a policy or you need to revise your current policy, and they will give us samples. So a lot of that work is supported by CABE, but it is quite an intensive amount of time of reading through and figuring out, how it applies to us and how we wordsmith it to make it work for Botel. But that's probably one of the heavier lifts in terms of committee work.
And we're able to make changes to those policies as a group.
Oh, yeah. So what happens in the committee is you look over it and you make adjustments, or you put together adjustments you think are a good idea, and then you bring it to the full board and present it to the full board, and the full board votes on those changes or adjustments or.
Well, we have to read it once, right? And then
Mhm.
it gets tabled and then
Yeah.
we read it.
It comes
second
back and
reading.
goes back and goes back. That happens forever.
So I think you both received copies of the latest policy that is in play right now, which is pretty much
this lovely
you
COVID.
know, the covers all of the COVID. They're not typically that involved, but that would give you, so we had a first reading, went out to everybody tonight if Jill were here, but in her stead, it'll be John asking for feedback and possibly a vote, right? Got that?
So, yeah, so that's what happens with the policy committee. Again, another very interesting one, because you get to know a lot of kind of the background stuff that you might not already know. Then there's the Health and Wellness Committee. That meets bi-monthly. Ginger is the chair there. Would you like to talk about that one?
Sure, it is a state mandated committee, not federal, but state. And we do have to have board representation and parent representation on it, so I'm currently both of those. And we meet with representatives from the school, including Lauren and Mary Beth, the school nurse, the school psychologist. And we look at health and wellness policies, at initiatives, at anything that really has to do with health and wellness for the school and with the community, like, you know, eyeglass drives and the dental program. And so because we have reps from school that we try to meet during school hours, which I wanted to point out to Kathy, we've been meeting at 9 a.m., not 2:30. And
Is that gonna stay at 9 a.m.?
that's what works best for everyone in the school. So if that's okay with you, then.
Yeah, I haven't made a meeting yet, so.
So
I was so good today. I went right on my thing. I'm like, yes, wait a minute, that's not tomorrow, that's today. I'm gonna do better though.
Right,
Put it in my
I'm
phone.
gonna remind you, I'm gonna text you the day before.
Good
in
idea.
February. So we used to meet monthly, but we actually, going through the policy, we realized we don't have to meet monthly. So we meet bi-monthly now, so and I would like to continue to chair that, so. Nobody has to worry
And
about
then
that.
we have the Communications Committee, which is a newer committee for this board. It's been a couple of years now, where we talk about things like how to get the message out about how awesome our school is, and best ways to communicate to all of our various stakeholders, parents, as well as larger community members.
Like the Economic Development Committee and the Norfolk Foundation and realtors and the website, all those things.
In addition to our committees, we have liaisons to some other groups, including shared services, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. PTO, which school safety and security is another group, a large group that meets, that talks about issues of safety and security in the school. And then we also have a board member that goes to each Board of Finance meeting and then comes back and tells us, represents us there and comes back and gives us the highlights of things we need there. And last but not least, we have an ad hoc subcommittee we've had for a while now, called the Botel Advisory Group, which is a way for us to kind of communicate with some of the kind of players in town, the town movers and shakers who, are can give us some feedback on how things are perceived about Botel, ideas about Botel, and kind of the way that it fits into our, again, larger community.
And there are 2 Board of Finance members also on that committee, that group.
On the Botel Advisory Group?
Yeah.
And then
Really? Who's
then-
on?
Leslie and Nina
Oh, nice.
and Libby and Joe.
and Libby and Joe. So from the EDC and from the Norfolk Foundation.
Okay, so that said, we'd be looking for you guys to kind of fit into a few of these. And so I had some, well, first of all, does anybody who's on a committee now want to change?
Not me.
Are there
I'm
any from
sorry,
the
I
one I described
did
to you before,
not
are there
hear
any that,
what Ann just
appeal
said.
to either of you, Janet and Jill?
I am health and wellness.
Oh, that's right, because you're in the healthcare field.
You can do that if you,
Are you looking to come off? We may not need to have a third person on health and wellness, but we could. It is at 9 o'clock on a weekday, which can be difficult with work schedules. But you have a flexible schedule, so maybe it would work with you. Okay, well, I'm gonna pencil you there. How about, or,
Yeah, I'm saying, like, I'll still chair it, but she can come.
yeah,
I mean, we can have 3 members.
oh,
on that.
absolutely, yeah. We can absolutely have 3 members there. And I thought, Janet, that you would be a good fit for communications as well.
I knew you were gonna go there.
Yeah, well, you like to talk and you're good at that. Like like I follow all of your posts on social media, so I will you communicate well.
I could do that.
Jay, what do you think you may have some interest in the policy section? We could use some help there.
Yeah, I can do that.
And let's see. Do you have, how about joining personnel negotiations?
Yeah, I think that's a better fit for me than finance, for sure.
Let's see.
Do you need someone else on the hotel advisory group? That one sounds pretty interesting as well, if you're looking for that.
Well, so it's also kind of the case that you really can, I mean, these are public meetings, so you can go to any of the ones that you choose to. So I mean, I think it'd be great to have you going. I mean, you you guys don't have any objection to Jane regularly joining you, right?
Not at all.
And as I said, it's, if you find like you have a particular interest and you'd like to join another meeting that's going on, even if you don't go each time, like that's something you can always do too. So like I often join the finance ones, even though I'm not officially like on that. Yeah. So I have Jay on personnel and policy, Janet on and hotel advisor group, Janet on health and wellness communications.
We need somebody for school
I was
safety
gonna
and
say,
security.
school safety and security, is that just one person?
You would be
Oh.
with a lot of the burns, so I mean,
And I actually was gonna ask John. John is
oh, that's right,
On-
fire department did.
yeah, and you're becoming the fire marshal
Yes.
or a fire marshal.
Thank you.
Oh, really?
Oh, I invited you to the next meeting. I thought
Yeah.
that was a, yep, okay.
So I think he's a good fit there. Gordon has a really good handle on shared services. I like to talk about the PTO. How about the finance committee? Do you want to do, will another member be helpful there?
Sure. So, sorry, I'm trying to communicate with Gordon and Santa in on all this. So on policy, I'm happy to stay on it, but I certainly wouldn't want to chair it. The finance committee, yeah, we need someone to replace Jill,
Mhm.
definitely.
Jay, would you be comfortable chairing a policy committee? What that will mean basically is just that you will report to the board on what happened in your meetings.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Perfect. That's great too, because I like to have the different chairs, to spread out our chairs.
If there's a third person, you have finance, I can.
Go to finance? Nice. Okay, well, so why don't we stick there for now? And if we want to make adjustments next month, we'll do that. But otherwise, we'll,
Do we need a third for policy?
oh, for policy, that's right. I just keep skipping over that one. See, I told you, that's not my.
Well, it would be really a good idea to have a third person. Like I said, it's a lot and you want as many eyes as possible. And then it is mandatory that we have a board member on the school safety and security. And Sally,
John,
oh, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Would I be able to jump from finance to policy then?
yeah, well, yeah, that sounds good. I'll join you on finance, because I like to go to those anyway. So I'll go to finance. And we'll put
Janet.
Janet on policy.
Okay.
Triple J.
Yeah, how about that? Good, then we have 3 for everything. That's so nicely balanced.
As chair, will I receive the policy to distribute to others first? Is that how that works?
I help.
So you send it my way and then
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
Mary, you'll lean on Mary Beth a lot in that
Okay.
policy committee, because she'll have all the information and a lot of command of it, so.
And those are just the hour and a half before these meetings. on select months.
Yeah,
Right,
we try to
okay.
plan it at 4 o'clock on a board night so that it's not 2 trips out.
Perfect,
So,
okay.
And if these times, so we set up these times and tried to make them regular just because it seemed easier to plan that way. But if there's, if you're on one of these committees and it feels like it's not, the timing is not working for you, please discuss it with your other members and see, you can always make adjustments, like health and wellness is meeting at 9, for instance. And communication meets all over the board because I am under.
And we'll meet anywhere. We'll meet wherever Ann says. We have to
We're
meet.
lots of fun. Okay, all right, so,
That worked out well.
yeah, so we talked a lot about it. Do we have any business we need to cover from those committees? Let's see.
Well, health and wellness, we met this morning.
Okay, do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I'll just do, let me bring up my minutes. So Mary Beth sent in the health and wellness policy. We were just waiting for feedback. We're gonna remove it from the agenda because we haven't gotten any, which means, no news is good news. We talked a little bit about the COVID updates and the screen and stay, how that's working, we've got, we said 9 students quarantining right now, 3 positive cases. So we're just, keeping an eye on that and waiting until, so right now the executive order is good till February, but we don't know what's going to happen after that, if the boards have to make policy or if the health departments will or the state. So that will be something we'll be talking about. But we haven't, although we've had 3 cases in school, I think as Lauren said, we haven't had any transmission within the school. So that's a good thing. And Brooker did Memorial, they do their dental program, they've done their educational program. They want to do the screening and sealings, like the cleanings and sealants, but since this is a new site to do it here, they have to get approval from the health department. So we're just waiting on that in order to do that part of the services. And that's all grant funded. The grant was written to help cover all of that. And Lauren mentioned the student council doing PJ Day for CCMC. And that's it for now.
Cool. For the policy committee, would we like to vote or talk about that COVID policy, please?
I had a couple of questions.
Oh, about health and wellness?
No, about the COVID.
Oh, okay, good, great.
If that's what we're moving on to.
Yes.
And I just more for clarification that I'm reading it as I think it in my head. If the district changes a policy, because right now we're going along with the other districts, what their policy is and what the health department of Torrington.
So this policy there's currently a policy in place that was voted on last year, but it had a shelf life because it didn't really extend beyond last year. So this was really put together by our attorneys to make sure that every legal coverage that the board needed is in here, so that what our practice is consistent with all of the statutes and laws and executive orders. And there are a couple places where it says in the policy that the superintendent that the board would authorize the superintendent to put into place any additional measures that are consistent with any new laws or executive orders. But this just covers all of the current legislation that is in place and makes it board policy as well as law.
So my question was so if something did change and it would be left to you to make that decision on behalf of everyone for that district versus it coming to a vote.
Correct. And I would certainly keep you informed, but it's just so that we're compliant with all of the laws. And so, for instance, if they, if they say something that I don't know what it could be, but if they added to the requirements, that we could then make sure that that becomes part of our practice without having to come back and revisit and revise and vote on the policy again and again and again. But any changes in practice would always be brought to the board so that you would be aware of what's going on and why.
I think the idea was because with COVID, so many changes came so fast and it got to be so difficult to keep up with it for the boards that they wanted to give a little bit more power or, flexibility for the superintendent to be able to act on things, or the administration to be able to act on things.
Right, so like as an example, like say if the other districts drop their mask mandates for school, but if you wanted to keep it in play, you could, despite.
No, I don't have that kind of power.
No, that's what I'm
would-
saying, but I
but
want to make
yeah.
sure I'm reading it.
So if after February 23rd, the executive order isn't extended and they don't come up with any other health department or the state or somebody, we typically rely on CDC guidance. So if the CDC guidance still says we recommend that masks be worn in school, then that's something that, as a board, we would have a discussion about and say, do we want to make that board policy that we continue to wear masks? That would be a biggie. And certainly I meet every week with the superintendents in Region 7, and we are very careful to make sure that we're vetting every other what other practices, so that in an event like with masking, I'm quite sure we would get together and we would say, let's make a proposal to our board based on what we know to be true and what guidance there is, what we would recommend. But we would hope that Region 7 would all say, yeah, we continue to wear masks even though we don't have to, or no, we don't, because it would make it very difficult for boards and for us as well. If, well, Colebrook doesn't have to wear masks, how come we have to wear masks? Our numbers are better in Norfolk than Colebrook, how come, and you'd be getting, a lot of pressure. But those kinds of things would certainly be discussion in terms of,
Right, I think-
implementing policy.
Yeah, I think that was my question, like if the other school districts decided to drop it, but you decided we wanted to keep it at this district.
Right, and I wouldn't decide, I would come to you with a
Oh, that's right, so it would be a
recommendation,
board.
but yeah, it would be a board decision for sure.
I think that's my only question, really.
I hope they eliminate the need for masks, it goes away sooner than later, but
I agree.
it's been very nice to have the executive order behind it, because we can say to parents, we don't have the authority to say no masks in school. We haven't had any issue here at Botel, not a single complaint or parent who challenged it. At Region 7, it hasn't been quite so nice. They initially, at the beginning of the year, had to, 5 minutes after the board meeting was open, can't stop the meeting, end the meeting, because parents were being very vocal and not wearing masks and refusing to cooperate. So, we've not had to deal with any of that, but I think that the chances are we would have a lot more challenges if the law doesn't support what we want and think is best for kids, but
So do we have any other questions about the COVID policy, and are we ready do we feel ready to move on that?
Gordon points out, it's not just for the kids, it's for the teachers as well.
absolutely, for all of us, yeah.
So this
John,
is
would
our
you like to
second
make a-
reading.
Yeah, this is our second reading, so if John wanted to make a motion about this, we
Aye.
could, or we could wait and give it another month. We have some new members, maybe they need more time.
I have read through it.
Okay, so you feel ready?
I can't vote.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's right.
Sure, I mean, I make a motion that we accept the COVID policy as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Gordon?
Gordon says aye.
Okay, great. That's good.
Oh, good, thank you. It's always nice to have the policy in place. I'm glad we don't have to go another month without it.
Oh, she wants to report.
So I wanted to talk about
But
communications before we go.
So
Not yet. I just wanted to say that I've been in touch with the folks who are doing the welcome packet for Norfolk, and that should be like kind of put together by the beginning of the year, and we'll have our piece in it. I also wanted to say, I'm not quite sure if this goes on communications or not, but I would really like to reach out to the Colebrook Board of Ed in the beginning of the year. There's been a bunch of changes in Colebrook with their first selectman and the Board of Ed, and I would love to start talking with them again. And so I'd like to sort of just make an overture to them and say like, hey, how's it going? We have some new people, you have some new people, would you like to get together and talk about things? And so I wanted to put that out there and get people's responses and see if they had like thoughts about that.
I can speak more later, or we can speak more later on the advisory group. We discussed that, and we were gonna bring that to you.
Oh.
As a suggestion to
Oh, good.
to talk, and then also, you know, we used to do the cultural events and things together, maybe incorporate the communities, how we can do that like we
Absolutely.
used to.
Yes, so things stalled a lot in the, year and a half with COVID, a lot of that communal sharing of things got stunted there for a little bit. And as I mentioned in the PTO meeting the other day, I've been in contact with the cultural events person in Colebrook, and we're hoping to talk with the administration about that. We're hoping to figure out some ways to be able to share some of our programs even this year if possible. Even though we already have them planned, we thought we would maybe just invite them if there was a way that they could participate. But we can talk more about what the rules might be for that or how that might work down the road. But yeah, so I think that it's open communication is always super helpful. We're two very small schools. We have a lot of common interests, a lot of common goals. So talking with them, I think would be a really nice thing to do. Okay, moving on to shared services.
I am not sure how I can talk. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Ah,
Let's try this.
All right, Gordon.
yep.
Yes.
Let's try this. I changed the speakers to the speakers.
Okay, let me,
the headphones.
let me mute and hold on. I think you can go through this. I am muted. Okay, Gordon, say something.
Hello? Oh, awful noise. Can you hear me? Yep, yes, no. I cannot hear you. Utter silence. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, so shared services is one of the most extraordinary committees I've ever been on. It's every meeting lasts about 15 minutes and it is full of great success every single time. So even though Quentin, who is apparently known as Q, reports that the occupational therapists are not completely available. There's not a lot of time and flexibility. And they do have one who's out and one who is in. They are still doing a really good job. The subs are excellent. They are hiring bus drivers, but that's it's generally very difficult to find labor. Lots of people are leaving once they've been hired. And there's particularly a lot of turnover in the Highlander and the Bridges programs, which are the programs they have for students who require more intensive services because they have autism or they are over 21 and are or they're approaching that area. Otherwise, all of the programs are at full compliance with vaccination or they are following protocol. All of the van drivers are vaccinated and they are very particularly loyal, but they have but they still don't so the special shared services still they don't have enough van drivers and they have had to turn down their extra work. Shared services has been audited and they passed with flying colors. Otherwise, in every way, they're in good shape, humming along, which is a statement I use constantly as a direct quote from Quentin. They're functioning without remote learning. Occasionally, there are some unique situations which require remote tutoring or a child who's just getting in support through CREC for medical reasons. Mary Beth, I don't know if you've already covered this, but the superintendent's meeting instituted screen and stay. COVID is in all the schools, but they are dealing with it. A regional celebration for the Blue Ribbon Award, which was pretty incredibly awesome. Quentin had to give focus goals because he is being evaluated, and one of them was to maintain the quality of staff despite the labor shortages and heavy turnover with paras and job coaches. They do act as a fiscal agent for Title I, special education, and pre-K. And for every supported town in this year, it's ×6. They do have lots of money for special education, and he does need lots of time to write the application for various grants in order to make them successful and to use them well. Each grant has a specific parameter for spending. And Judy, who is the head superintendent, has already gotten several grants, not for special education, but for using it. And she's using it for supplies for special ed. And there is not going to be a December meeting, so we will not have another report until January. Do you have any questions? Can't hear you. I guess I should unmute or.
No questions. Thank you very much, Gordon. That was an excellent report.
Does she have anything for the Board of Finance report since?
Oh, yes. Gordon, if you'd like to.
No? Okay.
How about you, John? Is there anything you wanted to report about the Board of Finance? I know that you often share that piece with.
So we haven't met, and we're waiting the.
Well, not the Finance Committee, but I meant the Board of Finance.
Oh, that board.
Liaison.
Right. The only thing that came up that's relevant is the slide.
They talked
And
about funding the
They
slide.
did talk about the slide, but since the Board of Finance meeting, it would seem that the funding for the slide will come out of the COVID relief funds. So
Right.
they're looking into that, just making sure that it's presented
Yeah.
appropriately so that it will meet the criteria for the grant.
Yes, understood. Yes.
But at $43,000, that's a significant chunk of change. So, but
But one well covered by the.
right, and
COVID relief fund.
there's a lot of money coming in for the COVID. So
Correct.
Great, okay. We're a bit disordered in this meeting today, but let's move on to the Hotel Advisory Group. Was there, you mentioned the Colebrook connection. Was there another piece you want to talk about that?
So I think that meeting would definitely be good. I think that we should consider who should be at what meetings, and if we can include any of the other members of the Hotel Advisory Group, I think that would be good. But the various members are happy to contact their counterparts as well.
Oh, yeah.
In Colebrook. So perhaps we should meet and discuss that to figure out
Yeah.
who should meet with whom. And
So I wonder if it's best. So when we met before, Mary Beth, you remember that? Were the chairman, the finance chairs were there, right? So a couple of years ago, actually just 2 years ago, right? It was
Yeah.
right before COVID, the meeting before COVID
Yeah.
hit. We went to Colebrook and met with the superintendent, the chairman of the Board of Ed,
Yeah.
the selectmen and our selectmen, and where the
Board of Finance
wasn't there?
No, it's selectmen, board chairs, superintendents.
I don't feel like theirs was there, but mine wasn't.
Well, theirs may have been, ours was not.
And that was a really good meeting. It would be good. I mean, I guess we have to start these meetings sort of like with this sort of generalized topic. And I think right now, because there are not a lot of new players, so it's a good time to do that. But then I would love to, I don't know, we should kind of talk about what we should talk about when we meet too, because I don't know, I feel like I've been in a lot of these sorts of meetings where we meet and talk about the things we do well together, and we talk about continuing those, and well, I guess that's just where we start to lay that groundwork. I would love to start this Board of Ed conversation with the Board of Ed. So I'd like to start there and kind of reach out to them. And then maybe I'd like to come back and, report on how that goes and kind of go from there. If you guys like that idea. You can talk with us. Yeah.
Can we do
Yeah. Oh, well, I was gonna start with an email
Okay.
and which I could send to you as well, but it'll be like short. Yeah.
But just to let you know, we have sort of also made a point to let the advisory group members know that, like, although there may be a push for consolidation with Coburg, that that's not something that you can snap your fingers and make it happen. That might not be the best solution to our enrollment issue or our finance issue or issues that are coming, so it's not, nothing is an easy fix for anything, but I think we need to make some community repairs and relationships with all of our neighbors, and Colbrook is one of them, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to start maybe even just sort of testing the waters. Like, how are you guys feeling? Like, do you feel like this is a problem that needs to be fixed? Or are you good independent? Or, do you want to work together? Like, and as we've talked about before, there are more options for consolidation than regionalization. Sometimes those two words get kind of mixed together like they're the same thing, which of course they aren't. There's other options, one of them we were going to talk about, we were going to talk about tuition. Like that's a way to have increasing students or change student body numbers, but it's already been a really long meeting. And I know we tabled this last time, but I think we're going to have to table that again to January. So, but before we move,
Did you want to mention anything PTO or just the holiday fair, pretty much?
yeah, so, yeah, sorry, before we get on to unfinished business, is like, on this list, we've got our PTO, so we haven't talked about, you mentioned the holiday fair. In January, we are hoping to start a musical, a Disney Junior musical, and we'll be talking to the administration about how that can work at the school with COVID considerations and things like that. So that's coming up.
After school program.
After school programs will be starting in the beginning of the year, she said, right?
Yeah, in January.
And then I guess we'll be moving into Spirit Week and stuff like that happens after that. So the PTO met virtually last night, and that's a good option, I think. Really hopeful to get, I wish more people could join our meetings, and I think that maybe virtually is a good way for them to join. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Okay,
Maybe we need incentives like for the open house. We gotta figure out something. For the
Yeah.
PTO.
right.
Help
Okay.
out with PTO if we needed. I think I put that down on the thing this year too. If you needed more PTO help.
Well, we just want bodies to come to meetings, opinions and just life and, ideas.
I could bring my body.
One thing I would say about the PTO always is there's always people who are willing to step up every single time. I have never found where, like, if you specifically ask somebody to do something, they don't come and they do it. And I love our school for that because they always do. It's just nice to have kind of new ideas in the room, to mix things up, to change things around, to just get feedback on how things are going. So,
And just how our school population is dwindling, the parent population is dwindling. So holding events and doing things like setting up for the spectacular and stuff, it takes more than 5, 10 people, like it takes a lot of people and, a lot of families show up, but it's like, do they realize that the work that goes into setting it up and getting everything ready? And so having just some more bodies to not put so much burden on the same group of people to do things. Like we haven't even had the book fair. I really miss the book fair.
Well, the book fair is complicated because it's a lot of touching and moving of things, but then also because we have not sold a lot of books because we have so few kids, it's not that, we don't qualify for great discounts anymore for the book fairs, and the book fair is less. They don't want to come,
Yeah.
it needs to make money for them too. But I
So
think we can still get one in the spring.
I'll stop talking so we can finish the meeting.
Yes. Okay, all right, so we're gonna table our tuition conversation again until next month. We've gone through our calendar, our schedule, and our COVID policy. I don't feel like we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Question about email address. I heard